Hello and welcome to a new setup. We have a wider lens and a new microphone for our continuing reading of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Today is the letter, or no, not the letters from no one. Last time was the letters from no one. This time is the Keeper of Keys, I believe. It's chapter 4. Let me double check that is in fact the Keeper of Keys. Yes, the Keeper of the Keys. So I was one word wrong. There's another "the" in there. So, see, we're testing this out. We're trying to figure out best setup for the microphone. Probably need to bring it a bit closer to me to get the best sounds possible. Tweaked a lot of settings and done a lot of stuff. I got this came with the soundboard thing. This thing unfortunately sucks. It has different voices and stuff that you can do, but they're very, very, very extreme. The male voice is way too low. The female voice is kind of weird. The monster voice is unintelligible, as so is my speaking. And it included saying what was coming up. So that's kind of a bit of a reaction to this thing. It's terrible, but the microphone is good. The stand that came with it is terrible. It's too small. Couldn't figure out how to do it. So luckily, I had another microphone stand, but it's a monstrosity. So we will have to figure out something because I do not have a lot of space in my RV to do this, but I am trying to. So, but anyways, we're not here to talk about microphone and technology. We're here to discuss Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the Keeper of the Keys. Hagrid? It's the introduction to Hagrid. Yes, of course, this does contain spoilers. So if you have not read the books already, please go watch somebody else, go watch Bibliobibuli. They're great. Or watch my clean readings, my beach readings where I'm out in nature mostly. So far it's been beaches, but eventually it will be other places. Actually, for this chapter, I have planned to go up and read at a lighthouse that's a little bit up the coast from where I am now. Moved from where I was yesterday. Because it's an RV, so I can go anywhere, any place, anytime, as long as I have the gas for it to do so, and stability enough to do so. It's got to be stable to drive, no having seizures while driving, right? Right. So, but without any further ado, let us begin. Oh, do I have a watermark on this image? No, I don't see the artist's signature there. Again, another image I found on Google search. Me. I hope this microphone sounds way better than, I hope you think it sounds way better than previous recordings have. So let us get into this discussion. Because, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Maybe. Chapter 4. The Keeper of the Keys. Boom! They knocked again. Dudley jerked awake. Ha! Boom, boom. Hagrid! Where's the cannon? He said stupidly. I mean, what does Dudley say that isn't stupidly? He's always saying things stupidly. It's redundant, JK. Dudley saying something stupidly? Yes. There was a crash behind them, and Uncle Vernon came skidding into the room. Slip slide. not taking a bath. But sliding into the room, he was holding a rifle in his hands. He's ready to murder somebody, to commit murder in front of his children. I don't care. Somebody breaking in, that doesn't give you the right to kill them. No. Now they knew what had been in the long, thin package he had brought with them. It was not a racing broom. It was not a broom in the long, thin package. It was a gun. "Who's there?" he shouted. "I warn you, I'm armed." "Yeah, you coward." There was a pause. Then, smash! The door was hit with such force that it swung clean off its hinges and with a deafening crash landed on the floor. A giant of a man was standing in the doorway. Hagrid! His face was almost completely hidden by a long, shaggy mane of hair and a wild, tangled beard. But you could make out his eyes glinting like black beetles under all the hair. The giant squeezed his way into the hut, stooping so that his head just brushed the ceiling, because he's twice as tall as a normal man. So he's 11 foot tall, 12 foot tall. And these are probably 8-foot ceilings, maybe a 10-foot ceiling. He bent down, picked up the door, and fitted it easily back into its frame. Because that's what burglars do. Break down the door and then repair it. The noise of the storm outside dropped a little. He turned to look back at them, to look at them all. Yes. How did... we don't get any indication that the storm got louder as Hagrid entered, but we get an indication that as he put the door back up, it got quieter again. "Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could ya? It's not been an easy journey." He strode over to the sofa where Dudley sat frozen with fear. "Budge up, you great lump." "Ah, Hagrid," said the stranger. Dudley squeaked, squeak, and ran to hide behind his mother, who was crouching, terrified, behind Uncle Vernon. "Ah, here's Harry," said the giant. Harry looked up into the fierce, wild, shadowy face and saw that the beetle eyes were crinkled in a smile. "Last time I saw you, you was only a baby. You look like your mom and dad. Or you look like your dad, but you got your mom's eyes." He didn't confuse Dudley with Harry. A bit farther around the middle than I would have expected. Farther along around the middle than I would have thought. Something like that. I should know these quotes and these lines. I don't know. Is that too low? Let's raise this up a little bit. There we go. Oh, there we go. Still getting it all figured out. Getting things situated so it sounds best as possible. Yeah. So, no. There wasn't any mistaken identity. Yes, it was a nice funny thing that the movies added, but it was not right, not accurate, not in the book. And if it's not in the book, then it's not right. Except for the owls delivering the letters and, a whole bunch of other things. Snape's last words. That is something the movies got right. And that was something that the movies added to the books that the books didn't have that was done right. It was Snape's last words. "You have your mother's eyes." Oh. But we're not there yet. That's a long ways away. That's months and months away. 100 videos away. Plus. Okay. Back to book 1. Not book 7, book 1. Let's see. Uncle Vernon made a rasping noise. I demand you leave at once, sir, he said. You are breaking and entering. Ah, shut up, Dursley, you great prune, said the giant. He reached over the back of the sofa, jerked the gun out of Uncle Vernon's hand, bent it into a knot. Not just bending the end, but bent the whole thing into a knot as easily as if it had been made of rubber. That's some strength. Hagrid is strong. And he threw it into the corner of the room, and luckily it didn't go off. That'd have been funny. Throws the gun into the corner and boom! Which the movies kind of did, but that was Vernon's panic and fear and how a bullet curves like that in a gun. It's a movie. It's just a movie. It's just a movie. It's not real, but still. Let's have a little bit. I don't know. Uncle Vernon made another funny noise, like a mouse being trodden upon. Squeak! Harry, said the giant, turning his back on the Dursleys. A very happy birthday to ya. Got something for you here. Might have sat on it at some point, but it'll taste all right. From an inside pocket of his black, not brown, overcoat, he pulled a slightly squashed box. Harry opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a large, sticky chocolate cake with Happy Birthday, Harry written on it in green icing. Right, there it is. There's the cake. All this green writing. Is everybody at Hogwarts write in green? All the teachers just write in green? Gotta honor Slytherin in some fashion. Give him some sort of dignity. Let him be what we write with. Yes. Harry looked up at the giant. He meant to say thank you, but the words got lost on the way to his mouth. And what he said instead was, "Who are you?" The giant chuckled. True, haven't introduced myself. Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. He held out an enormous hand and shook Harry's whole arm. What about that tea then, eh? He said, rubbing his hands together. I'd not say no to something stronger if you got it, mind. His eyes fell on the empty grate with the shriveled chip bags in it, and he snorted. He bent down over the fireplace. They couldn't see what he was doing, but when he drew back a second later, there was a roaring fire there. Not pointing his umbrella at the fireplace and going pow pow, and flames erupting. There wasn't that. Nope. Hagrid was more secretive than that. More stealthy. It filled the whole damp hut with flickering light, and Harry felt the warmth wash over him as though he'd sunk into a hot bath. So the first spell that Harry sees, or the first spell effects that Harry sees, is Hagrid lighting the fire. Which, of course, lighting fires is a great and a recurring theme throughout the series. Hermione lighting Snape on fire, Goyle lighting Goyle on fire, or is it Crabbe lighting Crabbe on fire? I don't know which once one of the two of them lit the other on fire, or lit themselves on fire ultimately. or lit the room of requirement on fire and then fell to their burning death. Because that's what you get when you try. Oh, shoot. Darn it. Fiend fire. Of course, how could I forget fiend fire? How could that slip my brain? Fiend fire, fiend fire, fiend fire. One of the substances that can destroy Horcruxes. But again, that is book 7, not book 1, and we are still on book 1. The giant sat back down on the sofa, which sagged under his immense weight, and began taking all sorts of things out of the pockets of his coat. A copper kettle, a squishy package of sausages, a poker, a teapot. Yet he asked the Dursleys to make him tea, and yet he's got the stuff to make his own tea. So why'd you ask the Dursleys to make you tea in a place that is obviously not their home and where they have nothing? Come on, Hagrid. Come on, come on. Several chipped mugs, and a bottle of some amber liquid. Whiskey, rum, Di Serono. That he took a swig from before starting to make tea. So he's got the tea. He's got something stronger. Why did he ask the Dursleys for the stuff that he's already got? And if he's got sausages too, I mean, come on. My goodness. Hagrid just came all sorts of prepared. Wonder if Dumbledore told him to bring all these things. Yep. Must have. Now, are these sausages as a squishy package? Are these Hogwarts brand sausages? Are these Hagrid brand sausages? Or did he somehow acquire them from a Muggle store? Or from a wizard store? Did he stop off in Diagon Alley or at the Leaky Cauldron and pick up a package of squishy sausages on his way to get Harry? Who knows? We don't know. I want to ask J.K. Rowling those questions. But considering all things, I don't think that's going to happen. Just let people be. Soon the hut was full of the sound and smell of sizzling sausages. The sausages, there we are, way up forward. Because this is moving forward, not sideways. Anyways. Geometry of my space. Let's see. Nobody said a thing while the giant was working. But as he slid the first 6 fat, juicy, slightly burnt sausages from the poker, Dudley fidgeted a little. His sausages don't cook that quickly. It's probably 5-10 minutes that they're sitting there watching Hagrid in silence. Not even Harry takes the time to ask questions while Hagrid cooks. Because, maybe those sausages are human meat. Because it is a giant. Giants eat humans. Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Harry is an Englishman. The giant's getting ready to eat Harry. Or to fatten up Harry so he can eat him. Tasty, tasty. Man flesh. Don't touch anything he gives you, Dudley. Vernon said sharply. Strike that, reverse it. The giant chuckled darkly. Your great puddin' of a son don't need fattening up anymore, Dursley. Don't worry. Hagrid knows everybody. He knows all their names. He did his research before coming. He passed the sausages to Harry, who was so hungry he had never tasted anything so wonderful. Because human flesh tastes good when you're starving. But he still couldn't take his eyes off the giant. Finally, as nobody seemed about to explain anything, he said, "I'm sorry, but I still don't really know who you are." The giant took the giant took a gulp of tea and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Call me Hagrid," he said. "Everyone does. And like I told you, I'm keeper of keys at Hogwarts. You'll know all about Hogwarts, of course." "Why would you assume that?" No, said Harry. Hagrid looked shocked. How could he be shocked that the Dursleys didn't teach him a damned thing? "Sorry," Harry said quickly. "Sorry?" barked Hagrid, turning to stare at the Dursleys, who shrank back into the shadows. "It's them that should be sorry." But make sure I am recording this. Okay, good. "I knew you weren't getting your letters, but I never thought you wouldn't even know about Hogwarts, for crying out loud. Did you never wonder where your parents learned it all?" "All what?" asked Harry. "All what?" Hagrid thundered. "Now, wait just 1 second." He had leapt to his feet. In his anger, he seemed to fill the whole hut, like Gandalf does. "I am not trying to rob you, Frodo Baggins." Do you mean to tell me," he growled at the Dursleys, "that this boy knows nothing about anything?" Harry thought this was going a bit far. He had been to school, after all, and his marks weren't bad. "I know some things," he said. "I can, do math and stuff." But yep. The Dursleys ensured that Harry had an education. Very good on them. Good job, Dursleys, making sure the kid, at least, isn't as stupid as Dudley is. Oi. But Hagrid simply waved his hand and said, "About our world, I mean your world, my world, your parents' world." "What world?" Hagrid looked as if he was about to explode, which would be a lot of mess. "Dursley!" he boomed. Uncle Vernon, who had gone very pale, whispered something that sounded like "Mimolin." Hagrid stared wildly at Harry. "But you must know about your mom and dad," he said. "I mean, they're famous. You're famous." "What? My mom and dad weren't famous, were they?" You don't know. Hagrid ran his fingers through his hair, fixing Harry with a bewildered stare. "You don't know what you are," he said finally. Uncle Vernon finally found his voice. "Stop!" he commanded. "Stop right there, sir! I forbid you to tell the boy anything." A braver man than Vernon Dursley would have quailed under the furious look Hagrid now gave him. Yes. When Hagrid spoke, his every syllable trembled with rage. "You never told him what it was in the letter Dumbledore left for him. I was there. I saw Dumbledore leave it, Dursley. And you've kept it from him all these years." "Kept what from me?" said Harry eagerly. "Stop! I forbid you!" yelled Uncle Vernon in panic. "Huh! Ha! Ha!" Aunt Petunia gave a gasp of horror. "Because they want him to turn into an Obscurial. They don't care if Harry's a wizard. They don't want Harry to be a wizard. They want Harry to be an Obscurial." Go boil your heads, both of you," said Hagrid. "Harry, you're a wizard." Spitting on my thing, on my Kindle. There was silence inside the hut. Only the sea and the whistling wind could be heard. I'm a what? Gasped Harry. A wizard, of course, said Haggard, sitting back down on the sofa, which groaned and sank even lower. And a thumping good one, I'd say, once you've trained up a bit. With a mom and dad like yours, what else would you be? And I reckon it's about time you read your letter. Harry stretched out his hand at last to take the yellowish envelope addressed in emerald green to Mr. H. Potter. The floor. Hut on the rock. The sea. He pulled out the letter and read, Hogwarts, unfolding it in order to see this part. Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He had to open the letter. It was not on the back of the envelope. It was not on the front of the envelope. It was inside on the letter itself. What is it? The heading, the letter front, letter top, whatever it is. Letterhead. That's what I want. The word I'm looking for. Letterhead. Headmaster. Albus Dumbledore. Order of Merlin. First class. Grand Sorcerer. Chief Warlock. Supreme Mugwump. International Confederation of Wizards. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins September the 1st. We await your owl no later than July 31st. Oops. Let me go back. That was not Dumbledore writing. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September the 1st. We await your owl no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. McGonagall, Maggie Smith, Dame Maggie Smith. Granny Windy Moya Angela darling. Hook, where's the hook? Hook, there's the hook. Granny Windy. Robin Williams. Robin Williams. Hey, I understand why, but why, Robin? Why? We miss you, Robin. We miss you. Questions exploded inside Harry's head like fireworks, and he couldn't decide which to ask first. After a few minutes, he stammered, What does it mean they await my owl? Yeah, and what would have Harry have done had he gotten the letter? Because he would not have had an owl. And if the Dursleys had have let Harry get the letter, or if Harry had have snuck the letter out and snuck it into his cupboard before the Dursleys took it away, how would he have responded? Because he didn't have an owl because there were no owls delivering the letters in the books. In the books, the owls did not deliver. They never showed up at Harry's house. So Harry has no owl. He would have had no owl. He would have been at a loss. A complete loss for what to do if the Dursleys hadn't kept him from getting the letter and gone off to the hut on the rocks on the sea, and Hagrid having to come and pick up Harry. It's the only way Harry would have been able to respond. Come on, guys. Come on, Hogwarts. Come on. I mean, one of you's in Ravenclaw. Flitwick's got to understand this kind of thing. He's got to be smart enough. And McGonagall's no slouch, nor is Snape. And Dumbledore, well, he's a genius. even though he wasn't in Ravenclaw. Or Slytherin, is where you'd rather be brainy than brawny, or if you'd rather be brainy than brawny, or yeah, something like that, because it's Snape to James. It's actually referring to Gryffindor, and if you'd rather be brawny than brainy, because brainy is Slytherin. Of course, James says, "And where are you planning to be? Considering you're neither." But that's again 5 and 7 or 6 and 7, 5 and 7. Pretty sure. Yes, because the Occam's, because Sirius yells at Snape or almost fights Snape in Grimmauld Place. But again, later, much later. Like I said, spoilers. There are spoilers in this. Lots and lots of spoilers. Okay. Galloping Gorgons. That reminds me, said Hagrid, clapping a hand to his forehead with enough force to knock over a cart horse. And from yet another pocket inside his overcoat, he pulled an owl. A real, live, rather ruffled-looking owl. More animal abuse. A long quill and a roll of parchment. With his tongue between his teeth, he scribbled a note that Harry could read upside down. Dear Professor Dumbledore, given Harry his letter, taking him to buy his things tomorrow. Weather's horrible. Hope you're well. Hagrid. Now, Hagrid's writing to Dumbledore, even though McGonagall sent the letter. Come on, Hagrid. Write to the right person. Hagrid rolled up the note, gave it to the owl, which clamped it in its beak. That seems not the best way to hold a letter. Of course, if it's a small enough owl that it fits in Hagrid's pocket, it might not be able to be tied to its leg. And maybe JK took a little bit longer to decide to realize this, which is why later books, the owls have notes tied to their legs. By book 2. Yes. Actually, maybe even halfway through book 1. Trying to remember. Because Harry doesn't write to anybody in book 1. Well, let's continue reading, and we will find out. Let's see. So Hagrid went to the door and threw the owl out into the storm. Threw it unceremoniously, and hey, there's an owl there. That's quite a large owl. But anyways, let's see. Then he came back and sat down as though this was as normal as talking on the telephone. Harry realized his mouth was open and closed it quickly. Where was I? Said Hagrid, but at that moment, Uncle Vernon, still ashen-faced but looking very angry, moved into the firelight. He's not going, he said. Hagrid grunted. I'd like to see a great muggle like you try it. Dyslexia. Get these letters and words straight. I'd like to see a great muggle like you stop him, he said. A what? Said Harry interestedly. A muggle, said Hagrid, is what we call non-magic folk like them. And it's your bad luck you grew up in a family of the biggest muggles I ever laid eyes on. We swore when we took him in we'd put a stop to that rubbish, said Uncle Vernon. Swore we'd stamp it out of him. Wizard indeed. Obscurial he's going to be. You knew, said Harry. You knew I'm a wizard? Knew? Shrieked Aunt Petunia suddenly. Knew? Of course we knew. How could you not be?
My dratted sister being who she was. Oh, she got a letter just like that and disappeared off to that school and came home every vacation with her pockets full of frog spawn, turning teacups into rats. I was the only one to see her for what she was, a freak. But for my mother and father, oh no, it was Lily this and Lily that. They were proud of having a witch in the family. She stopped to draw a breath, she stopped to draw a deep breath, and then ranting on, then went ranting on. It seemed she had been waiting to say all this for years, for a decade plus. Then she met that Potter at school, and they left and got married and had you. And of course, I knew you'd be just the same, just as strange, just as abnormal. And then, if you please, she went and got herself blown up, and we got landed with you. Oh, her sister, her poor sister got murdered, blown up, killed, blown to smithereens. Nothing left. Nothing left of the bodies. Blown up. Pieces everywhere. Enough to make sausage. Blown up? You told me they died in a car crash. Car crash? Roared Haggard, jumping up so angrily that the Dursleys scuttled back to their corner. How could a car crash kill Lily and James Potter? It's an outrage. It's a scandal. How could a car crash kill them? Well, I don't know. The same way a car crash kills anybody else, really. Hate to say it, but I don't think wizards are going to be able to stop it. No. I mean, unless they're prepped for it. I mean, unless it's like the night bus and things just get out of its way. But that's book 3. Harry Potter not knowing his own story when every kid in our world knows his name. But why? What happened? Harry asked urgently. The anger faded from Haggard's face. He looked suddenly anxious. I never expected this, he said in a low, worried voice. I had no idea when Dumbledore told me there might be trouble getting hold of you, how much you didn't know. Harry, I don't know if I'm the right person to tell you, but someone's gotta. You can't go off to Hogwarts not knowing, nor can you go off to Diagon Alley not knowing. I gotta tell you before you get to Diagon Alley, before you end the leaky cauldron. Before everybody says, my gosh, Harry, such an honor it is to meet you. Can't... whatever. I'll get to Quirrell in a minute. Next chapter, 2 chapters from now, I think it is. It's a bit yet. Oh no, should be next chapter, yeah. Oh my. We're gonna take a pause. All right, back into this. Alrighty then. Continuing where we left off. Yeah, can't go off to Hogwarts not knowing. He threw a dirty look at the Dursleys. Well, it's best you know as much as I can tell you. Mind, I can't tell you everything. It's a great mystery, parts of it. He sat down, stared into the fire for a few seconds, and then said, it begins, I suppose, with a person called... But it's incredible you don't know his name. Everyone in our world knows. Who? Well, I don't like saying the name if I can help it. No one does. Trying not to do the southern accent. Gulpin' gargoyles, Harry. People are still scared. Blimey, this is difficult. See, there was there was this wizard who went bad. As bad as he could go. Worse than worse. His name was...
Haggard gulped, but no words came out. No, he's in front of the Dursleys. So the Dursleys are hearing this story, hearing the truth, the full details of how they died, how her sister died, or who killed her sister. And I don't know how much Lily would have told Petunia, and because it was only like 3 or 4 years. Well, no, I guess the Voldemort was active prior to their graduating, but not by much, really. They were teenagers when Voldemort really started getting active, which is kind of crazy realizing that. Anyways, could you write it down? Harry suggested.
Nah, can't spell it. All right. Voldemort.
Hagrid shuddered.
Don't make me say it again. Anyway, this wizard, about 20 years ago now, started looking for followers. Got him too.
20 years ago. And this is in 91, so in just the early 70s. Around 1970 was when Voldemort started getting active. Not very long ago. I mean, I guess now that's 50 years ago.
The chamber was open 50 years ago. Voldemort was active 50 years ago.
Next book.
Got him too. Some were afraid. Some just wanted a bit of his power. Because he was getting himself power all right. Dark days, Harry. Didn't know who to trust. Didn't dare get friendly with strange wizards or witches. Terrible things happening. He was taken over. Of course, some stood up to him, and he killed him. Horribly. One of the only safe places was Hogwarts.
So were wizards around the country, adult wizards, flocking back to Hogwarts for protection? Was Hogwarts giving that much protection to people? Like, I mean, if it's one of the safest places, like, go hide at Hogwarts. I mean, well, of course, that doesn't work out so well in Book 7. But, yeah. But at this point, I mean, when Voldy's starting, Hogwarts would be a pretty darn safe spot to actually hang out and hide from Voldemort.
He said the name, I said the name.
Let's see.
Reckon Dumbledore's the only one you know who was afraid of. Didn't dare try taking the school. Not just then, anyway. But next time he will. Now, your mom and dad were as good a witch and wizard as I ever knew. Head boy and girl at Hogwarts in their day. Suppose the mystery is why you knew who never tried to get him on their side, on his side before.
Because they were Gryffindors. They were always... James' parents would have... Or I would assume James's grandparents would have been anti-Grindelwald. Maybe movie 4 will have a Potter in it. Looking forward to that. Still working on Secrets of Dumbledore edit, reaction edit. Because gotta make sure I don't get copyright on that. Oh, man. Ow. Darn my throat. Okay.
Probably knew they were too close to Dumbledore to want anything to do with the dark side. Maybe he just thought he could persuade him. Maybe he just wanted him out of the way. All anyone knows is he turned up in the village where you was all living on Halloween 10 years ago. He was just a year old. He came to your house and
the Fidelius charm had been broken. Haggard suddenly pulled out a very dirty, spotted handkerchief. Why does nobody in the wizarding world wash their rags? Hagrid doesn't. Aberforth doesn't. Filch doesn't. Okay, there's a whole bunch of other people in the wizarding world that do. Like Hepzibah Smith. I'm sure Hepzibah Smith definitely washes her rags frequently, or has Hokey wash them frequently. And eventually, Creature washes his rags. Oh, looking forward to Creature. Book 7. Another, again, a long ways from now. This is such a good series. Okay. Haggard's, yeah. And he blew his nose with a sound of like a foghorn. Sorry, he said, but it's that sad. Knew your mom and dad, and nicer people you couldn't find anywhere. You couldn't find. Anyway, you know who killed him. And then this is the real mystery of the thing. He tried to kill you too. Wanted to make a clean job of it, I suppose. Or maybe he just liked killing by then. No, he went there for the purpose of killing young little Harry. That was the entire purpose of Voldy's journey there. Because Severus Snape let that information out. Spoilers! Spoilers! Spoilers. Snape made a bad choice, which he felt remorse for, which justifies him. Maybe. Meh. We'll decide at the end as we go through it bit by bit. Let's see. But he couldn't do it. Never wondered how you got that mark on your forehead. That was no ordinary cut. That's what you get when a powerful, evil curse touches you. Took care of your mom and dad, and your house even. But Avada Kedavra leaves no marks. So it wasn't the these glasses get crooked on my nose. One problem with the pince-nez is getting them lined up. Once they're lined up, they're great, but getting them lined up is a challenge. Let's see. Okay. But it didn't work on you, and that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he decided to kill him. No one except you. And he'd killed some of the best witches and wizards of the age. The McKinnons, the Bones, Madam Bones, Susan Bones, the Pruitts, Molly's brothers,
and you was only a baby, and you lived.
Something very painful was going on in Harry's mind. As Hagrid's story came to a close, he saw again the blinding flash of green light, more clearly than he had ever remembered it before. And he remembered something else. For the first time in his life, a high, cold, cruel laugh. Hagrid was watching him sadly.
Took you from the ruined house myself on Dumbledore's orders. Brought you to this lot.
Why didn't Dumbledore himself go to pick up Harry? Oh, well, probably because he was having to run down to the ministry to deal with everything going on at the ministry and everybody celebrating and had to figure out how to write a letter. Because that was probably took a long letter that he wrote. At least I hope it was a long letter because that should have been a lot to explain. So it probably took him time to write it.
Yeah. Load of old tosh,
said Uncle Vernon. Harry jumped. He had almost forgotten that the Dursleys were there. Because in the movies, they weren't there. Because Hagrid didn't tell Harry this story until the Leaky Cauldron, which in that public place is definitely not the best place to be telling the story. I mean, sure, telling it in front of the Dursleys, maybe not, but they should already know. They're in on it. They are aware of the wizarding world. So it's okay in front of the Dursleys, but some of the stuff for Hagrid to be talking about it in the Leaky Cauldron. No. Shouldn't be doing it, Hagrid.
But because you didn't do it.
Oh, excuse me. Uncle Vernon certainly seemed to have got his courage back. He was glaring at Hagrid, and his fists were clenched. You gonna punch Hagrid, Dursley? You great prune, you gonna punch Hagrid? Oh, no. You wouldn't survive that. Because Hagrid puts people into the ground when he's just patting them on the back, congratulatorily or sympathetically. Knees sink to the ground. Again, later books. Later! Spoilers! Always, always, always. And that's why this is fun. It's a fun reading. We're having fun doing this. Right?
Now you listen here, boy, he smiled. I accept there's something strange about you. Probably nothing a good beating wouldn't have cured or turned you into an obscurial. And as far as all this about your parents, well, they were weirdos, no denying it, and the world's better off without them, in my opinion.
Not the thing you say to a child about their parents, regardless of who those parents were, even if they actually were horrible people. You don't say that to a kid. But of course, this is the Dursleys and their abusive twerps.
Asked for all they got, getting mixed up with these wizarding types.
Just being who they were naturally. You know, they weren't hiding who their nature was. They're just being themselves.
Just what I expected. Always knew they'd come to a sticky end.
Partially because, when you play with fire, you're gonna get burned. And, he who lives by the wand dies by the wand. I suppose we can go that route. Yeah. I wish I had alcohol. Right now, I'm starting to. Actually, I'm starting to seizure. Okay, so we're gonna take another break while I get this seizure stopped. Okay. Let's get back to. Okay. Forgot how long. I don't remember how long this chapter is. How much we get. Let's see. Okay, so we got them to the sticky end. Always knew they'd come to a sticky end, and commentation on that. Okay. But at that moment, Hagrid leapt from the sofa and drew a battered pink umbrella from inside his coat, pointing this at Uncle Vernon like a sword. He said, "I'm warning you, Dursley. I'm warning you. One more word." Not because Dudley or Vernon insulted Dumbledore, but because Vernon insulted James and Lily. And he insulted all wizards. But mainly he insulted James and Lily. That's what got Hagrid mad this time in the book. Not insulting Dumbledore. James and Lily. In danger of being speared on the end of an umbrella by a bearded giant, Uncle Vernon's. Wow, that was a tough sentence to read. Oh man, my dyslexia is getting me right now. I'm gonna make my font bigger, because that's why I have an ebook. Because I can make the font large enough for my dyslexia to overcome. Hopefully, what do I have? And the open dyslexic font is even worse for me, actually. Have been using Bookerly, Amazon Ember. Let me try that. Definitely not those ones. Ember Bold. No, that won't work. No, stick with it. Yay, dyslexia, post seizures. That's part. Seizures take a lot out of me. It's tough. Even when I there we go. That's a bit better. It's at least the muscles snapped into place where they're supposed to be. Yeah, my seizures, information about my seizures are on my main channel, Williams R. Dan, or Dan Williams. YouTube /U or C/ C/Williams R. Dan is my main YouTube channel. I'll put a link down in the description to that, and that has information about my seizures, somewhat more about my RVing, but some of my seizures. But I'm trying. I'm working on this. Trying to read. Trying to do YouTube for all this. Yeah. Okay. Uncle Vernon's courage failed again. He flattened himself against the wall and fell silent. "That's better," said Hagrid, breathing heavily and sitting back down on the sofa, which this time sagged right down to the floor. Harry, meanwhile, still had questions to ask, hundreds of them. But what happened to sorry, I mean, you know who?
Good question, Harry. Disappeared. Vanished. Same night he tried to kill you. Makes you even more famous. That's the biggest mystery, see? He was getting more and more powerful. Why'd he go? Some say he died. Codswalloped, in my opinion. Don't know if he had enough human left in him to die.
No. Certainly not enough soul left in him.
Some say he's still out there biding his time, but I don't believe it.
He definitely is.
People who was on his side came back to ours. Some of them came out of kind of trances. Don't reckon they could have done if he was coming back.
That's a good point. Yep. But
wrong. How wrong he is. Most of us reckon he's still out there somewhere, but lost his powers. Too weak to carry on. 'Cause something about you finished him, Harry.
No, it was something about his mother. Lily. And James. Because James sacrificed himself too. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget. James also sacrificed himself to protect them. Apparently it wasn't enough to get Lily's protection, ensure her protection, but I think there was still some magical protection that James gave Harry that night in Godric's Hollow.
10 years ago. There was something going on that night he hadn't counted on. I don't know what it was. No one does.
Dumbledore, maybe, is getting there.
But something about you stumped him all right.
Hagrid looked at Harry with warmth and respect blazing in his eyes. But Harry, instead of feeling pleased and proud, felt quite sure there had been a horrible mistake. A wizard? Him? How could he possibly be? He'd spent his life being clouded by Dudley and bullied by Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. If he really was a wizard, why hadn't they been turned into warty toads every time they tried to lock him in his cupboard? Because transfiguration is challenging. That is not something that not even first year can do. No. I mean, sheesh. Transfiguration is a tough subject. Especially human to animal transfiguration. But Barty Crouch Jr. is good at it. Ferret Draco. Draco, the amazing bouncing ferret. Looking forward to book 4 for that. If he'd once defeated the greatest sorcerer in the world, how come Dudley had always been able to kick him around like a football? Because magic is weird. Magic is very specific. It's very peculiar and specific. Certain circumstances are required for magic, for protection magic. Hagrid, he said quietly, I think you must have made a mistake. I don't think I can be a wizard. To his surprise, Hagrid chuckled. Not a wizard, eh? Never made things happen when you was scared or angry. Huh? Harry looked into the fire. Now he came to think of it, every odd thing that had ever made his aunt and uncle furious with him had happened when he, Harry, had been upset or angry. They tried classical conditioning. Yup. A little Skinner box. Put Harry in a Skinner box. PF Skinner, I think that's what it was. It's been a while since I studied psychology. I just never liked the classes. Love the subject, not the classes. Ah, yes. Chased by Dudley's gang, he had somehow found himself out of their reach on this school chimney. Dreading going to school with that ridiculous haircut, he'd managed to grow it back. He'd managed to make it grow back. And the very last time Dudley had hit him, hadn't he gotten his revenge without even realizing he was doing it? Hadn't he made the glass disappear until Dudley fell into the tank? No. He just made the glass disappear and the snake escaped. Hadn't he set a boa constrictor on him? Harry looked back at Hagrid, smiling, and saw that Hagrid was positively beaming at him. Robbie Coltrane smiled. It's such a good smile. See, said Hagrid, Harry Potter, not a wizard. You wait. You'll be all right. You'll be right famous at Hogwarts. But Uncle Vernon wasn't going to give in without a fight. Haven't I told you he's not going? We're going to keep him at home where we can look after him. Always. So we can always be around him. Because we're wholesome Dursleys that love Harry very much and want to spend as much time with him as possible. Because we miss Lily and even miss James. Something like that. He's going to Stonewall High, and he'll be grateful for it. I read all those letters, and he needs all sorts of rubbish. Spell books and wands, and if he wants to go, a great muggle like you won't stop him, growled Hagrid. Stop Lily and James Potter's son going to Hogwarts? You're mad. His name's been down ever since he was born. He's off to the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world. 7 years there and he won't know himself. He'll be with youngsters of his own sort for a change. And he'll be under the greatest headmaster Hogwarts has ever had, Albus Dumbledore. I'm not paid for some crackpot old fool to teach him magic tricks. There's the insult to Dumbledore, yelled Uncle Vernon, but he had finally gone too far. Hagrid seized his umbrella and whirled it over his head. Never insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me! Ha ha ha. Oink, oink. He brought the... See, quite different. It's two different insults that gets Hagrid going for threatening Dursley and turning Dudley into a pig, as we are about to see. He brought the umbrella swishing down through the air to point at Dudley. There was a flash of violet light, a sound like a firecracker, a sharp squeal, and the next second, Dudley was dancing on the spot with his hands clasped over his fat bottom, howling in pain. Because he grew some new bones, because tails have bones. I'm sure even pigtails have bones, or at least cartilage. And they still have a tailbone that's longer than our tailbones. And when the tailbone hurts, oh, does it hurt. Comment below if you ever have your tailbone hurting. An extreme pain of tailbones. And if you know why. Because I don't know why every once in a while. Anyways. When he turned his back on them, Harry saw a curly pig's tail poking through a hole in his trousers.
Uncle Vernon roared, pulling Aunt Petunia and Dudley into the other room. He cast one last terrified look at Hagrid and slammed the door behind them. Hagrid looked down at his umbrella and stroked his beard. Shouldn't have lost me temper, he said ruefully. But it didn't work anyway. Meant to turn him into a pig. But I suppose he was so much like a pig anyway, there wasn't much left to do. And because transfiguration is difficult, and when you have a wand that has been snapped in two, even if Dumbledore repaired it with the Elder Wand. Yes. Harry's wand is not the only wand that the Elder Wand repairs. Hagrid's wand gets repaired by it too. Too bad Ron's wand couldn't get repaired. Ron's wand. There's a good tongue twister for you. But let's see. He casts a sideways look at Harry under his bushy eyebrows. Be grateful if you didn't mention that to anyone at Hogwarts, he said. I'm not supposed to do magic, strictly speaking. I was allowed to do a bit to follow you and get your letters to you and stuff. One of the reasons I was so keen to take on the job. Why aren't you supposed to do magic? Asked Harry. Oh, well, I was at Hogwarts myself, but I got expelled through no fault of my own, to tell you the truth. It was all a big lie, that the reason I got expelled. In me third year, they snapped me wand in half and everything. But Dumbledore let me stay on as gamekeeper. Great man, Dumbledore. He repaired my wand with his wand. Make the font a little bigger. Yeah, I think this font is actually smaller than the previous font. There we go. It gets big. Why were you expelled? It's getting late, and we've got lots to do tomorrow. Changing the subject, said Hagrid loudly. Got to get up to town, get all your books and that. He took off his cloak, his thick black coat, and threw it to Harry. You can keep under that, he said. Don't mind if it wiggles a bit. I think I still got a couple of dormice in one of the pockets. And that is the end of chapter 4. Well, it is unfortunately too windy outside right now for me to go out and record my normal reading of this chapter. But like I said, I'm going to go a couple more miles north up to a lighthouse and see if I can do it up there. That location will be the famous sea lion, elephant seal beach here in San Simeon. Maybe I don't know if I should or shouldn't say where I'm going to be traveling through, but I'm uploading these pretty much right away anyway, so whatever. Talk Harry Potter. Come talk Harry Potter with me if you are in the area. Yeah. Let's see. Great chapter. Hagrid. Love Hagrid so much. And I think Hagrid might be my favorite character in the series. Just noticing I'm doing a lot of hand motions now that I have the wider lens. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. It'll keep things more entertaining if there's more going on. Blah! And especially so with this wide lens, I can go like this and that's just really, really terrible. And I won't do that anymore. Maybe I'll make a special video no, I won't. But anyways, yes. Hagrid telling the story in front of the Dursleys. And it's such a sad story
And the movies, of course, don't do it justice because they can't. They're limited to what they're able to do with a movie. Although everybody, I'm sure, would be totally fine if all the movies had been another hour longer. Would have been great. I would have sat through it, and I was working the movie theater when the first movie came out, and I'm pretty sure every single one of those people would have sat through another hour of this movie because it could use it. There's just little nuances, little details of things. So far, I mean, the introduction, especially chapter 1, and getting to know the Dursleys before anything else. Just, I wish we could have gotten that. But we're still only chapter 4 and of 19 chapters, I believe, for this book, the shortest of the books. So long ways to go. Maybe by the end of the month we'll have this done. Maybe not. Maybe pretty close to that. So join me come check out or check my channel and look for the commentate or the clean readings of this chapter and other chapters, and the commentated readings of all my chapters. Yeah, definitely got to work on how I end these videos. So with that, let's just cut it and subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell. Yeah, all these things. Wizard on.